Postgraduate Diploma in Environmental and Occupational Health, specially for the course MEV 004, that is Environmental Toxicology. With a vast, almost approximately 7,000 kilometer coastline of India, we find these days that it is being burdened with a number of industrial pollutants and the domestic sewage, which is actually being directly put into these coastal waters. According to the NIO from Goa, that is the National Institute of Oceanography, they have done a lot of research work on the type of contaminants and the toxicants that are entering these coastal waters, and they have reported through way of their research and through the research papers that we find number of the PCBs, that is the polychlorinated biphenyls, then the polyaromatic hydrocarbons, organochlorine pesticides, and many other toxicants. All these can accumulate in the tissues of human beings, also in the fauna, that is all those organisms, the marine organisms that are thriving in these waters, which can also be accumulated by way of the process which is known as bioaccumulation or biomagnification through the food chain, and ultimately it is we humans who are facing the brunt, and we are facing so much of the human health hazards. So this is actually, we are actually in a state of worry, and India is right now on a toll, and we have a number of cases and increasing incidences of diabetes and hypertension, which could also be related to these toxicants and chemicals which are disrupting the metabolic pathways of the various biological systems. To discuss these issues on toxicology, we have Professor Tannu Jindal today with us in our studio. Welcome to our studio, ma'am.
Hello everyone.
I invite you, ma'am, to our studio and would like you to explain some concepts in toxicology, in environmental toxicology, and how this field is interdisciplinary in nature.
Okay. Thank you so much. In fact, I will go by for the environmental toxicology to know. First, we need to understand what is toxicology. So, toxicology is the study of adverse effect of chemicals on living beings. What are the mechanisms which are underlying, what are the adverse effects of these chemicals, and the conditions under which they occur. Practically, in fact, none of that chemical is which is not poisonous. It is the dose which decides whether it is a poison or it is a remedy. For example, if one takes salt in higher concentration, then it becomes a poison. And toxicology is a stream where many disciplines are there: epidemiology, pathology, pharmacology, statistics, physiology, chemistry. So these study of all these branches make the study of toxicology. Now coming to environmental toxicology. So this is the study of impact of pollutants on the structure and function of ecosystem. Now this includes only man-made chemicals. It does not include bevotoxin or other chlorotoxin, these kind of chemicals which are naturally occurring. It does not include that, only the synthetic ones for which man is responsible. Now, in this, basically the chemicals like PHAs, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, PCBs, pesticides, heavy metals, dioxins, dibenzofurans. So these are the new chemicals which are being introduced. Pesticides, and these are no longer new, but dioxins and nowadays chlorofluorocarbons, all these are new chemicals which are being introduced. And their study, their impact, their deposition, their residues in soil, water, air, flora and fauna, they impact the ecosystem. Now, environmental toxicology is again a highly interdisciplinary field. Now, this includes analytical chemistry, organic chemistry, biochemistry, molecular genetics, genomics, pharmacokinetics, physiology, microbiology, mathematical and computer modeling, risk assessment, then biometrics, soil science, geology, meteorology, ecology, marine biology, limnology, wildlife biology. So this is consisting of almost biological and chemistry. Now, to describe about the toxic triangle, there is a toxic substance which interacts with the environment, and affects the host, and if it is acting in a toxic manner, it is affecting the biogeochemical methods or bioefficacy, it becomes hazard. Now, in this, very important is that basic research. So, first of all, how to identify it? So, scientific community, they do research, they identify a chemical becoming a poison or a contaminant in the ecosystem on the basis of the concentration. So, when the concentration of a particular chemical increases in the system and it starts affecting the processes, it has been reported by scientific community. They publish papers, they participate in various peer-reviewed processes, and then research programs are being launched on the basis of identification of toxicity and mechanisms. Now, identification of potential effects from the molecular to ecological, development of testing methods, analytical tools, statistical approaches, construction of useful programs and models, these all come under research programs. On the basis of the results and findings, risk assessment is being carried out. That is identification of effects and associated uncertainty, quantification of interaction between chemicals and other environmental stressors. So once the risk has been established, recommendations are being given to government agencies, and then they play a role in making policies. Then very important role is being played by industry. So enforcement is being given to industry to follow certain procedures where contaminants which are released in environment after doing certain procedures are being reduced, they have been treated. So pollution prevention, identification and remediation, these are the methods. Now what is the role of general public? General public must be aware of about all these contaminants, and they should know what are the effects of these contaminants and how they can also contribute. So general public is being made aware by writing research articles in layman language. They are published in newspapers, and then public is also participating in getting the policies made and then the removal of these toxicants from the environment. Now environmental toxicology work depends on lab work, field work, and then modeling and fate and transport of toxicants. Further, static models, short-term modeling of ecosystem, strategic models for specific aspect of a system, and testable models which makes predictions that can be tested in the field or laboratory. Now, I would like to apprise you about what are the fate and transport and how biochemistry, biotransformation, physiological behavior have been affected. To identify the mode, site of action of a xenobiotic, fate and transport studies are being done, in which first introduction of a xenobiotic, for example, a chemical, for example, mercury, through thermal power plant is being introduced. For example, a pesticide is being introduced. So, what is the source of introduction of a xenobiotic? Then comes in the flow chart biotransformation. So these toxicants, when they are introduced in the environment, it is quite possible they do not remain as a parent compound. They get metabolized, and their byproducts are there. So their byproducts can be more toxic or less toxic. And then, for example, when malathion is introduced, it is getting converted into parathion. Coumaphos is being introduced, it is getting converted into more toxic potassium. So these pesticides and molecules have their transformation procedures. And then there is a site of action. Where do they act? For example, acetylcholine esterase inhibitory activity is done on the enzyme acetylcholine esterase. So site of action is there, and there is a particular biochemistry inside the body of the organism, and which further changes the physiological behavior. For example, acetylcholine acts at a synapse of the bone joint. Then population dynamics is there affected, what are the community parameters, and ultimate impact on the ecosystem. To take an example of this, the introduction of a xenobiotic, then there will be enzyme induction. There are some stressors are there, glutathione S transferase, mixed function oxidases, hydrolases, DNA repair mechanism. So this may be the site of action. DNA RNA receptors, key enzymes biogeochemical integrity, and stress proteins, metabolic indicators, acetylcholinesterase inhibition, adenine energy charge, then metallothionein production and immunosuppression. So these are the effects. And you have seen that there are a lot of diseases which are occurring because of these chemicals. Immunosuppression, you see various impact of Alzheimer and other effects, and then cancer, which is the result of all these chemicals prevailing in the environment. And due to these diseases, there is change in physiological behavior, chromosome change, lesion, necrosis, tumors, teratogenic effects, and behavior mortality. Now with these diseases, there is going to be effect on population density, productivity, mating success, fecundity, then genetic alterations are there, and competitive alterations also do occur. Because of this change in the population, there is change in community structure, diversity, energy transfer, stability, succession, chemical parameters, and there is overall impact on the ecosystem in adverse manner.
So there is an increasing use of these chemicals and pesticides in agriculture. So I think you have explained how these chemicals disrupt the biological systems, the metabolic pathways in biological system, and also the fate and transport of the same in our system. So now you can go on to explain the toxicological studies and how relevant they are for sustainable development.
Certainly, I would like to explain that. And on the basis of our experience, there are a lot of cancer cases which are occurring in our country. I hope you will agree with me.
Exactly.
1 out of 5 females are prone to breast cancer. So when I was starting my research and I have expertise in pesticide residues, so I thought of lot of studies have been carried out on the product, because we are exporting these products on the market, and the studies have been carried out on the pesticide residues in the product, but people are not focusing on these pesticide residues in water bodies. Who will analyze those? In water bodies, basic parameters are being carried out. For example, microbial contamination, then pH, temperature, BOD, COD, all these. But there is less focus on analyzing these chemicals being introduced in the agriculture system. Only 1% of the chemical pesticide goes into the target. Rest goes into the air or in water.
That's right.
So when I was filing the project, I was preparing the project, so it came to my mind how we can know what is the concentration of these pesticides in rivers, or how much it is leaching down into the groundwater. So we devised a project on impact of pesticides in Hindon, Ghaggar and Yamuna river. And we took the crops rice, vegetable and cotton, because there is lot of load of pesticides in rice, cotton and vegetables. So as I said, only 1% goes to the target and rest goes to the environment, and it's a very dangerous condition where we are polluting our streams, our surface water bodies, groundwater bodies through the contamination by these pesticides. And many of the water purifiers are also not able to remove these pesticides, though there are claims that they remove pesticides, but it is not easy, because there is a complete cocktail of pesticides which our farmers are being spraying in the system. So my slide shows that organochlorine pesticide, which are being banned in the system.
Yeah.
DDT has been banned long back, but our graph shows, our study shows in vegetable growing area in Sarai Kale Khai area near Yamuna Khadar, that approximately 31.3% of samples were above maximum residue limit. And in organophosphorus pesticide, 19.4% samples were contaminated by the pesticide residues. While in vegetable, we could not find the new generation pesticides, which are called synthetic pyrethroids. They were found below detectable limit. But at the same time, when we are studying the river Ghaggar in cotton growing area, and you know cotton is not an edible plant, so farmers do not bother about the concentration of the pesticide they are spraying, and they generally do more than the recommended dosages. So the concentration of pesticide which is found in Ghaggar river in cotton cropping area is very alarming. 50% samples were contaminated by organophosphates and 10.5% by synthetic pyrethroids even, which are considered to be very safe. They are new generation molecules, but still their residues were found. And organochlorines, which are being banned way back long, 36.6% samples were found contaminated. So it's a very alarming situation. And on the basis of this study, most of the samples were found above residual limits. So when we are consuming this water for drinking, it is likely that they will go into our system, and our body has a capacity to metabolize these pesticides.
Yeah, from your graph, sir, that's what I could just see that the amount of the pesticides that are found in rice and in seasonal vegetables. So that is why we don't know from where our vegetable comes from the market. So these are having alarming levels of the chemicals. And again, we are going, most of us, the consumers are shifting towards organic farming and organic agriculture. But there again, we don't know how organic is. So
yeah, but I agree with you. But sometimes organic farming is not the solution. When the pest is there, what farmer will do? So for that, I have given recommendations to on the basis of my project, that proper training to the farmer should be given for the judicious use of pesticide.
Exactly.
And as you have seen, the new generation molecules are available in the market, which degrade very fast. So they should use, when the pest population goes above the threshold level, they have to use it. So that can be done. Then biological methods of control. There are natural pesticides are there. For example, neem extracts are there. Then trichoderma cards are there. Then NPV virus, there are systems. Then mechanical method of farming, soil cellularization of the. Then they should do seed treatments, on which seed is only treated. So you can use only seed treatment, and then there is no need of spray later.
That's right.
And also we have given recommendations if we can train our farmers, for example, through Krishi Vigyan Kendras, and the regulatory authorities are there who go and see in the farm if there is a particular problem of pest infestation. They give recommendation, and the pesticide should not be given in the hands of farmers. The regulatory body should be having a license to spray the pesticide, and they must be doing only after seeing what is the seriousness of the case. In that way, when a farmer can have pesticide only on the basis of a prescription of a regulatory body, I think the use of pesticide can be reduced. And we can save our produce, we can save our environment, air, water bodies through the usage of these pesticides, and further we all of us, the living system.
That's right.
Yeah.
So these recommendations are very useful in the project that you have applied. And another problem also, like we find this environmental enteropathic syndrome where the gut becomes permeable, and this is normally, I think it's noticed in some of the children and the infant population. So here again the gut is permeable to the microbial biota, and easily the microorganisms can enter your gut and it could enter the bloodstream. So thereby they contract this disease, which is known as the environmental enteropathic syndrome. This is recently being observed, where there is also fecal contamination and various other toxicant contamination. So this brought out the importance of the toxicology, the definition of toxicology, and you also explained how environmental toxicology is a multidisciplinary field and interdisciplinary field, and it is important that we involve the practitioners, and it involves the studies from various other disciplines and subjects, and where we could carry out the projects. For example, whatever you have shown are the action projects and the projects which are to the present, to restore the environment to the good condition, and these are very important so that the public are aware of the deterioration of the planet, and some recommendations which can actually help and more importantly, the legislations and the judiciary which brings out these laws, acts, policies, and also the various other protection and the protocols which are important for the farmers also, so that they judiciously use the pesticides and other chemicals for agriculture and for growing of other crops. Thank you, ma'am, for this session.
Thank you so much.